Welcome to the Calder Farmstead, your place for news, analysis, and shenanigans from the American Hockey League.
Face off one by the Condors, Jones, top, another point fence into the slot, a shot is gone! Josh Perry, in double,
left point, long drive, save, Kinetic, what a stop by Matisse with the left pad! Oh, there was a scramble in front of the net, denied was Matt Schicker by a miraculous piece of net binding by Matisse Kinetic.
D-laner from the red line sends it in, Hofer into his net, he stops it, Hofer looking, Hofer firing toward the empty net, he scores! Are you kidding me? Joel Hofer, a goalie goal in the Calder Cup playoffs!
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out. Right side with Fair. Brooks Light cutting to the net. Fair and let's go! He scored! He scored! It's over!
Hello, hello, hello from Kattegat, Norway.
And a secret vampire location in Long Island.
Welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode number 117 for Thursday, October 27th, 2022. If you are hoping for a podcast featuring tips and tricks for hay storage during Norwegian weathers, we are not going to be much help for you. This is an American Hockey League podcast. My name is Sven Wolfkist from Stats Track and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
And I'm Nadia from Antipaxos from Full Press Hockey and also SB Nation's Canes Country.
Thank you as always for tuning in with us. Skål! And if you are new to hearing Sarah and I talk about hockey, we're going to talk about some AHL news as well as discuss the goings-on of 8 teams randomly chosen around the AHL. We both watch a lot of AHL games and are going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break that down. If that's new to you, you may want to head over to our YouTube channel or podcast channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stuff we're going to be talking about. So if some of the newer advanced hockey stats terms are new to you, like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out. So you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes, and let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes watching Aaron Judge at bats. He not only didn't break the home run record, he also didn't even make it to the World Series. Crying shame. Really is. You'll never get that time back. So next time, why not spend a little more time with us talking hockey? If you haven't guessed already, this is our Halloween episode. Happy Halloween to all of you. If you are usually a listener of the podcast on Spotify or Apple, this may be a good one to come over to the YouTube channel for. Just throwing it out there. But let's start, Sarah, right away. This was a busy day for AHL news. We had 2 trades that were directly affecting AHL teams. Let's start with the first one here. Nicolas Baudin traded to the Montreal Canadiens organization from the Chicago Blackhawks organization for Cameron Hillis. Don't really get this trade for Rockford in terms of, or Rockford / Chicago. Cam Hillis is not a future NHL player. He started the season in the ECHL in Toronto, VA. He's a pure playmaker who has some defensive upside, whereas Baudin has been a solid AHL defenseman. He struggled a little bit last season to create offense, but he has a lot of NHL caliber skills and habits, especially in transition and in the offensive zone. I think he could at least potentially be an NHL defenseman in the future if things break right for him. Sarah, what were your thoughts from this trade?
Same thing. This was something where it just feels like this, and what we're going to talk about later is just Chicago continuing to clean house of like anything Stan Bowman has touched. I don't understand why they want to make Rockford worse. Rockford's already not going to be great. And here they are trading for, basically barely replacement level players. So good for getting Baudin a chance to, a second chance, change of scenery for him, but it's not helping Chicago or Rockford in any way.
Yeah. Second trade that the Blackhawks / Ice Hogs made was sending Evan Barrett for Cooper Zek. Once again, don't get this one. Cooper Zek also not a future NHL player by any stretch. he's barely an AHL defenseman. Whereas I kind of like Evan Barrett. I think he kind of like Beaudin has some NHL qualities to him, none of which are Barrett's skating, which I think we said in the preseason, if Evan Barrett could ever get his skating to be like average-ish, in the ballpark of average, he could push for, a bottom six role, a fourth line role on an NHL team. He has good defensive chops. He has some offensive upside, but the man can't skate at an NHL pace, and that's really what holds him back. But like, that's still something where you could squint at him and see, NHL upside, whereas you don't get that from Cooper Zek. Sarah, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, same thing. I feel like Evan Barrett, even if there's not an NHL future for him, he could easily eke out a career being a career AHL guy. You need those players in your system. And again, trading him for a guy who is, like you said, barely an AHL defenseman, isn't going to have a future with this organization. It just feels like Chicago/Rockford is just like blowing things up for the fun of it almost.
Yeah, I think what you said about just getting rid of the things that Stan Bowman did. I mean, part of me wonders if like the front office isn't subscribing to all the, spam email things that Stan Bowman unsubscribed to just out of spite. But one thing though, I will say about these two trades is they don't make sense from a face value perspective, but Beaudin is from outside Chateauguay, which is about 40 minutes outside of Montreal. He got traded to his hometown, quote unquote, team. Evan Barrett is from Bristol, Pennsylvania, about an hour outside of Philly. He got traded to his quote unquote hometown team. I think there is a possibility, and I'm clearly not reporting here. I don't have any inside information. I am out here speculating in the wind. But I think it's possible that both clearly saw the writing on the wall in the Blackhawks organization and decided, I'd like a fresh start. And like many players seem to have made moves this offseason, they wanted to be closer to home, to where their family is, where their friends are. And I think that's a lesson that COVID taught a lot of players, is that they would rather at the end of the day be in a city or a town that's close to their family geographically. And if that was going to be what happened here, it wouldn't shock me, because both of these trades look like they were, hey, yeah, we can get you to, the Flyers organization or the Canadiens organization. We'll find and the phone call was like, send me somebody. I don't really care who. Just give me a guy that I can at least squint at and see an AHL player in. Sure, him sounds great. Yeah. That's the way kind of I look at this. But there is more Ice Hogs news that we have to discuss, although it's not quite the on ice hockey variety here. The Rockford Ice Hogs have a new mascot, which has not gone well for them. Hammy went through a quote-unquote health journey with one of Rockford's corporate sponsors that's a local gym. Did some personal trainer sessions, an 80s-style workout montage, saw a nutritionist for advice on diet. It was like a nice little four-part video series that was basically just an ad for the gym that was incorporated with Ice Hog stuff in the off-season. B+ promotion idea for your corporate sponsor, while finding a way to spice up changing your mascot instead of just, hey, this is our new mascot guy. Like, B+ I think for the promotional idea. The execution though, this is the difference between the two mascots that we're going to bring up on the screen here. On the left is what Hammy used to look like, and on the right is what Hammy looks like now, which is straight up nightmare fuel. And the thing is, fans hate it, and I don't blame them. It's not good. It also sends kind of a terrible message. Get healthy and get in shape so that you too can make sure that any kid that sees you never sleeps again. I just, the only way I can kind of justify this in my mind as to how this happened is that the front office staff sent like some sketches or concept, drawings of what the new Hammy should look like to, whatever mascot outfit company that they used. And by the time they got it back and realized what it was too late to change. Like, it was either, go with the mascot costume they were sent, or not have a mascot for some long stretch of the season while it got remade. and they chose the option that can only be described as an Oscar Mayer hot dog possessed by the ghost of Charles Manson running around the stands greeting children. That's the choice that they went with instead of just no mascot at all. I also want to point out that the old Hammy didn't wear pants, and the new one does. Did eating better and exercising make Hammy aware that he was just kind of letting it all hang out in the breeze there? That seems like an unexpected consequence of a healthier lifestyle. I'm not really sure what to make with that. Also, just as an aside, there is currently a change.org petition that has more than 2,400 signatures to have the old Hammy come back. Sarah, what do you make of this
monstrosity?
Yeah.
There aren't enough words for how much I hate it. I hate it so much. I saw the whole corporate sponsorship thing trickling in, and they're like, Hammy's transformation's coming soon. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, uh-oh. Because anytime someone's like, we're zhuzhing up our mascot, like that goes poorly, combined with kind of like what you said about like the terrible message of like, there's a delicate balance between let's promote our gym healthy corporate sponsorship, but then also like you must be thin and ripped to be like respected. Like that's kind of gross. So I like didn't like where it was going. And then I saw the new Hammy and I was like, I feel like we're family friendly on here, so I can't say what my exact reaction was, but it was bad. Also the fact that the Ice Hogs over the summer, redid their logo. So they don't have the like cartoony like font anymore. It's just the pig head. But now they have changed the mascot so it looks nothing like the logo anymore. Like old Hammy looks like the logo. New Hammy looks like I just like went on a bender and drew something with my left hand and turned it in. Like I thought I was being punked when I saw it. I thought it was like it's like the wish.com version of Hammy. I thought it was like someone in a costume at the home opener or something. And no, they paid money for that. I need to go find that petition. Honestly, it's horrible.
Honestly, it looks like old Hammy was starred in a reboot of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and came back. And this is what he looks like now. It is something, that's for sure. But that wasn't the only news we have to talk about before we move on to, talking about some individual teams. Kyle Rao made the surprise signing with the Abbotsford Canucks. And I say surprise signing because I just kind of assumed when I didn't hear anything that he had either retired and taken up like a, low-level coaching gig or developmental coach or skills coach somewhere, or that, he had gone to Europe and I had just missed what league I can't pronounce that he joined here in Kattegat. I guess it can't be the KHL. I'll have to work on that. Can't be the NHL either for Norwegian Hockey League. Anyway, but I'm so baffled that he signed a 1-year AHL contract. That's the part of this that is mesmerizing to me, because that means exactly 0 NHL teams or organizations decided that they could offer him a two-way contract, an NHL deal that would have paid him probably the exact same amount of money, but at least given him the, hope that he could make some NHL games, which, he's played in. He's played 61 NHL games. He also had 25 goals, 28 assists, 53 total points in 55 games last season for an Iowa team that was at times very not good. I don't get it, especially if you're a GM for an AHL GM, even to offer him a contract. If you're Cleveland, Providence, Tucson, Belleville, Colorado, Iowa, teams that we went into this season looking at their forward depth and being like, man, they could really use like another veteran scoring piece. Abbotsford definitely on that list, so very good get for them. But like, how did you let Kyle Rao go a week into the season without a contract? This felt like a Chicago Wolves signing in the making. And just, Chicago doesn't necessarily need him, but like, how did none of those clubs offer him a two-way deal? Like, this isn't like a contract slot availability thing. Columbus has 7 contract spots open, Boston has 3, Arizona has 6, Ottawa has 4, Colorado has 5, Minnesota has 4. So none of them were right up against it that they couldn't offer him, a 1-year, 2-way deal, paying him whatever he's making in the AHL now. Sarah, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this surprised me. Like you, I had kind of just assumed that he was I knew he wasn't back with Iowa, but I had assumed he'd turned up somewhere, or like you said, in Europe, or just, I know he's, big on the came from the NCAA. Maybe he wound up back there, coaching or advising or something. And when I saw the announcement from Abbotsford, I was like, wait, really? The fact that Iowa let him go. I mean, we talked in our last episode about how Iowa's not going to be good. What prospects is Iowa and the Wild organization trying to make room for by not re-signing him? There's no one. So the fact that they didn't bring him back, these other teams we know aren't going to be good or going to be looking for veteran help, didn't bring him back. Sure, he's, undersized, but that hasn't ever really mattered at the AHL level. He's shown that he can play in the NHL. I'm glad that Abbotsford picked him up. I think he'll be good for that team that is not great. Could potentially, no, he can't play for the Canucks because he's on an AHL deal. No, this is just bad. He should have had a deal already.
I mean, honestly, the Canucks need all the Vancouver Canucks need all the help they can get. Abbotsford, by extension, also needs more scoring depth. So this is a great signing for Abbotsford. I mean, he's a proven AHL offensive play driver. He has good defensive awareness. He adds value as a forechecker. He's on the smaller size, but the dude scored 53 points in 55 games and 25 goals last year. I don't care if you're 4'8". If you can score 25 goals in the AHL, I will sign you to a contract. It's just baffling. I don't know. This would be another one. If we have Wendell Young back on the show, GM for the Chicago Wolves, I'd love to ask him something like this. How does a guy like this make it to, did you not just throw money at him? And he said no. Wendell said he's thrown money at guys at times who have said no to him, but they were guys who still went into the season with a contract. So I don't know. That's weird. All right, let us go away from all of the AHL news. I think we've got just about everything. There are a couple other little minor things, but nothing really worth discussion of. The AHL signed or hired a new guy to do officiating for the league. Hooray for them. Let's dive into some team-focused dives here. Let's start, as we always do, east to west, Atlantic to Pacific. We got 8 teams to talk about here. Sarah, who do we got up first?
So we're going to start with the Hartford Wolfpack, and nothing's really been going right for them early on. They're 30th in terms of goals per game, 27th in goals against per game, 18th in the penalty kill, and yet they're getting above average goaltending. Garand is at 906 save percentage, Louis Domingue 909. Their average 8.893. So it's fine. So Sean, what do you see as a reason behind those numbers? What is going on in Hartford to cause all this?
As always, there is no simple answer for why things are going bad. It's usually a multifaceted kind of thing. And I've seen a couple things watching the film for them of why we're seeing the numbers look like the way they are. So first reason I would say is they have not done well in transition. It seems like they've been caught making bad turnovers against light forechecking pressure, or they're getting caught in the offensive zone with, all the forwards and sometimes a defenseman, getting caught deep behind the play. And then all of a sudden the puck is going the other way. And it's a odd man rush just by virtue of you had 4 guys behind the puck. In general, as we've talked about in episode 0, as well as many, many times in this podcast, transition is one of the most important factors in hockey. You see good transition a lot in subtle ways, but it comes in those moments where the ice just seems like it's tilted one way. All the action is just going to one side, and that's almost always because of good transition. Getting pucks from your own defensive end up the ice through the neutral zone into an offensive possession or into a rush chance. But it seems like, Hartford is at least forechecking well. They're back checking well. They're executing some controlled zone exits and entries, but that's not, or sorry, I take that back. The Wolfpack have done a good job forechecking, but they haven't been the greatest at zone exits and entries. I haven't liked what I've seen from guys like Ty Emberson, Hunter Skinner, Brandon Scanlon, and Ben Harper, especially Ben Harper. a lot of light forechecking pressure has those guys just going glassing out or making turnovers when they rim the puck to an area that no one's at. Some of this is because of a little bit of bad habits from those guys, not scanning over your shoulder before you go to retrieve a dump in. So you can at least, form a mental picture of what the play looks like as your back is turned, going to pick up the puck against the wall. I've seen a bunch of instances where guys have not been doing that, and then they'll just rim the puck around into space, and shocker, no one is actually there because they didn't look. They just kind of thought that's where a guy is supposed to be. I'll just blindly throw the puck there. Some of this has also been bad communication. Your defensive partner or goalie should be communicating to you what's going on when your back is turned and what the play should be. You can't really hear this too much on AHL TV, but if you're in the arena and you see, a defenseman going back for the puck and you hear someone yelling, wheel, 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 or hot, hot, that's what they're doing. That's a communication between either the goaltender or a defensive partner and the guy going to pick up the puck that's telling them there's pressure on them. This is the play that you should make. You'll catch little bits and pieces of that in the rink, but you don't usually get to hear it on AHL TV. We also said going back to our season previews that an area of the Wolfpack roster that concerned me was the defense and the depth behind their top pair. Those bottom two pairs also aren't the best skaters and have struggled to defend speed against the rush. So they need those smooth transitions and good neutral zone play from the forwards, not just, to help themselves, but also so that they have back pressure so that they don't have to commit to defending the blue line without back pressure, because that's how you're going to get burned. This is something that the Wolfpack kind of need to work on a little bit, and is something that you can iron out through practices, through reps and games. It's something I expect to be better as the season goes along. We see a lot of teams, and it feels like it's random draw the beginning of every season. Some teams, come out of the gates and they look sharp. They're executing well. For whatever reason, their training camp, their early practices, it all just clicked with them a lot faster than it does other teams. But in general, you'll see a lot of these kind of just October oopsies where the team doesn't quite all look like it's there. And it seems like it's not really up to, they're a better coached team or they're a poorly coached team. As we'll talk about a team later on in the show that is very well coached, that is also seeing the October oopsies. Another big area that they've kind of had in Hartford is rebound control. Yes, both goalies have a save percentage that's above league average at the moment, but stats may never lie, but they can be misleading a little bit. In both of my views, both goalies have let up some juicy rebounds, and in some cases, that's unavoidable. You take a shot from the top of the crease, you're more focused on making the save than kicking the rebound to a good area because your first instinct is save puck now. Quite a few, though, of the rebounds that have been given up seem to have been off some low danger shots from distance where they had a clean view of the puck coming off the stick. But shots that are off a rebound are by nature a high danger shot. The puck is off in a direction that's hard to anticipate, so no one's really ready for wherever that rebound ends up. That means pretty much everyone is out of position for at least a second or two, including the goalie. So a shot off a rebound is going to be one that's very likely to go in. So that rebound control is something that we need to see both goaltenders in Hartford focus in a little bit more. Again, I'm not too concerned. I like both Domingue and Garand, so I think that will be something that gets better with time. The Wolfpack also have just had bad luck so far. I haven't run the full season model yet. I'm still working on building that out a little bit. But they're all situations. PDO is currently 96.3 as of Wednesday night. For those of you who don't know what that is, PDO is a measure of puck luck. It's basically team shooting percentage plus team save percentage. A PDO of 100 is considered normal. A point or two above 100 is considered very good luck. Point or two below 100 is considered bad luck. Hartford is at 96.3. If you've watched the games, though, that level of puck luck feels right in some spots. I mean, how many posts has Hartford hit? How many high danger shots from the net front just couldn't find their way in? Overall, I think Hartford's going to be okay. The problems on defense and transition are both fixable, but they need forwards to be more responsible in the neutral zone so that their slow-footed defensemen aren't getting blasted around the corners from other forwards building speed through the neutral zone and just having a giant runway. You can't let that happen. Goalies need to do a better job controlling rebounds from low-danger shots, but that is, again, something I expect to get better on its own with time. I wouldn't be too concerned by Hartford at this point, although there are at least some bad signs, but nothing that I'm, slamming the panic button on yet. All right, let's go to our second team focus here. We're staying in the Atlantic. We are going to talk about the Charlotte Checkers. We're turning from Hartford to a team that handed them 2 of their losses. The Checkers are undefeated so far. Only one of 2 teams left in the league who haven't suffered a loss yet. Sarah, what is going on in Charlotte? How are they doing it? And can they keep it up?
So first thing to keep in mind is that 2 of Charlotte's wins have come against Hershey, who are just kind of average right now. They're sort of middle of the pack in their division. And 2 have come against Hartford, who we just talked about, and they currently just don't look that good. So we all know Charlotte's going to be a good team, but they're also not playing the best of the best yet. Charlotte's also being really helped out by their special teams. The power play is tied for second in the league, 33.3% right now. 5 of their 15 goals for right now have come on the power play. The penalty kill is also top 10 in the league. They're tied for 9th at 82.4%. But they are putting together a good product on the ice. And one thing that I really like about what I'm seeing from Charlotte already is their tenacity. So 3 of their 4 wins have involved comebacks, including a pretty epic comeback from down 3-0 against Hershey for an eventual 5-4 win. And in games like that, especially when you get behind that far, everyone can have a bad game, a slow start, but the important thing is how do you respond to it? And Charlotte in that game at the beginning, they looked sluggish. They weren't getting to pucks. They were letting Hershey basically dominate, particularly in the first period. But they scored 5 straight goals from 18:03 in the second period to 19:14 in the third period. There was one, garbage goal from Hershey after that, but whatever. They scored 2 power play goals, had 1 empty net goal. They basically just roared back. They have the skill to come back from a deficit like that, but it is something to pay attention to. The fact that they're having to make so many comebacks already, and we're 4 games into the season, it could be a little concerning. Are these chronic late starts a problem? In that game against Hershey, it took them nearly 9 minutes to get their first shot on goal. Is that something that's going to be a trend, or was that just sort of a blip in that game? In that game, they only had 2 shots in the first period, and they came on basically the same sequence within about 20 seconds of each other. So usually when you see a team get behind that badly, the reaction is panic. If they're a younger team, if they're less experienced, they try to get too cute. They put in too many passes. They're all trying to find the one guy on the team who they know can score a goal and get him the puck. But in this game, their response was very calm. They continued to play strong defense. There was great back checking to disrupt scoring chances, even when they were down 3-0. And they made a lot of simple plays. The first 2 goals that they scored en route to their comeback, they were ugly goals. They were scored by guys going to the front of the net, chipping pucks in, and just going to those areas that it's a cliche, but that's where you go. You go to the net. Players weren't looking for the perfect pass, their perfect shot. They were just looking for something that was going to get a puck to a goalie. So they're showing that they can play any kind of game. They put together dominating performances. They've come back from what could have been blowouts. And I think one of the things that's really meaningful for Charlotte is the veteran experience on this team. They have, among others, Riley Nash, Zach Dalpe, Chris Tierney, Jerry Mayhew, Michael Dozzato, forgot about him even, like he's there, Anthony Potetto, Lucas Carlson, a lot of guys who have played a lot of career games in the AHL and in the NHL. And I think that has to make a huge difference in the room for some of those younger players in there to be surrounded by so many guys who have that level of experience that are going to help keep them from panicking or overreacting. So Charlotte off to a really strong start this season, and I think they're going to be able to keep it up. We're going to go next to Cleveland. The Monsters. They're 3-2 so far into the season. And in all the previews that we did, we weren't super high on this team. So has anything in the first handful of games in the season changed your outlook for Cleveland?
I would say no. They've looked better on offense than I suspected that they would. But Bemstrom and Marchenko have started this season red hot. They're both shooting 25 and 30.8% respectively, which we'll just go ahead and call it now. That's not sustainable. They're both very gifted shooters, but no, nobody is that good. The team as a whole is shooting 11.2% right now. 7 teams in the AHL finished higher than that in the regular season. Cleveland itself shot 8.6%. So they are almost shooting, by my math, 50% better through the first 5 games of the season than they did all of last season, despite having a very similar team. Now, granted, Cleveland did have some bad puck luck last year, but this still feels unsustainable, rather. Yeah, I think you got that. However, the defensive side for the Monsters has been nothing short of a mess. Their PK is 31st in the league in raw penalty kill percentage as of of Tuesday night going into Wednesday's games. They do play Wilkes-Barre Scranton tonight. That is happening as we're recording. So we don't know what happened in that game yet. Hopefully it went well for them, but maybe it didn't. I don't know. Their even strength defense for the Monsters is also 18th in goals against per game. And while teams across professional hockey don't get the defense settled until around November-ish, the Monsters' defense has been especially not great, Bob. And they don't have the benefit of proving goaltending behind, a leaky defense to help kind of solidify that in my mind. The team also has won all 3 of its games so far in either overtime or the shootout. So in reality here, they were like 1 bounce away from being 0-5 here. But there are, I think, good signs. I think the team in general has forechecked well. They've done a good job of getting offensive zone turnovers and then turning those into scoring chances, which is not as easy as it may sound. I've seen a number of teams last year who would forecheck really well. They would get offensive zone turnovers, and then they would do nothing with them. So the fact that they're able to quickly turn, pucks retrieved on the forecheck into scoring chances is a good thing. In the first 5 games, they've also outshot teams from the home plate area in 3 of those 5 games. Overall, they're controlling 53% of the shots from the home plate area in those first 5 games, which is good. That is a good thing. I've said this would be a fast and fun team in preseason, and they have been so far. But I think that shooting percentage will cool off, but I don't think the defense really makes that big of a leap forward given the goaltending that's behind it. I don't think that shooting percentage coming down and the defense going up meets in the middle, and I still think that they fall short in that aspect. I still say this should be a fun and fast team, but one that I think loses games more in the 6-4 neighborhood or 5-3 instead of a lot of 4-1 games like they did last season where they're just getting skunked beginning to end. So yes, my outlook for the Monsters is still not terribly positive. I don't think much has changed from that in the first handful of games, but I'm still thinking that if you're a Monsters fan, you shouldn't just be, casting off your season tickets into the trash just yet. Like, there's still going to be a lot of fun games. This still is going to be a fun team. I just don't think it's going to be one that ultimately at the end of the game is on the winning side that often.
So I wanted to look at one specific player you mentioned. You talked about Emil Bemstrom in there. Right now he has 9 points in 5 games, which feels pretty wild. In the season preview, you said he's someone who's gotten pushed to the perimeter easily at times, and that's one of the things that sort of stifled him at the NHL level. Has he been making any offense from the perimeter in Cleveland so far? Is he starting to find his way inside? Like, what's up with him?
It's been a bit mixed from what I've seen so far. Again, small sample. It's only been 5 games. So as longtime listeners of the show have known, I've always warned about drawing hard conclusions from small samples. We've played 5 games here, but at least what I've seen has been okayish. He hasn't been the primary puck carrier through the neutral zone a lot, which I think it bodes well for him not getting pushed to the perimeter because you can't just push guys to the perimeter who don't have the puck. And Emil Bemstrom's off-puck game is actually really good. And I think that's enabled him to more or less be able to avoid being pushed to the perimeter so far. And I think that's helped him a fair amount in being able to generate offense from the inside as he can have teammates gain the zone and then find him in dangerous areas where he can quickly make offense from, whether that's finding soft ice in the home plate area and getting shots off, or doing a lot of what we saw, I want to say it's Braden Tracy do in San Diego last year, where it's a lot of his possessions and time touching the puck in the offensive zone are these like 1-touch, 2-touch. I have the puck for like a quarter of a second, but I'm able to generate really strong offense from it. We've seen a little bit more of that from Emil Bemstrom, and I think that's not necessarily been what his game has been at the NHL level, but I think it's doing a good job of playing to his strengths and avoiding his weaknesses. He also hasn't been in a lot of spots where he's had to do more than that so far from what I've seen. I haven't watched every second of every game that they've played, but from what I have seen, he hasn't been asked to go outside that comfort zone yet. When he doesn't get the puck in the offensive zone, or when he doesn't get the puck in the offensive zone, when he does get the puck in the offensive zone, he's making decisions with it quickly, efficiently. Some of that speaks to his off-puck game, as he's not just standing there waiting for the puck to come to him. He's scanning the ice, so when he does get the puck, he knows what to do next already before it even touches the stick, and he can focus on simply executing that next play. Still, I've seen some small moments where I've seen him get pushed to the perimeter a bit. I do think the slowed pace of the AHL and the defenders that he's up against being not as good have helped mitigate this a bit. I do still love his defensive game, though, and I'm surprised we haven't seen more of him on the penalty kill or in more like defense-first kind of situations. But again, early in the season, trying not to draw too many hard conclusions. But I liked what I've seen, but I'm not, trying to overstate what I've seen. So that is our time with Cleveland here. We're just, doing a couple of quick little drop-ins around the league here. Let's move next to the North Division and talk about the Rochester Americans. We didn't have very high expectations for Rochester when we looked at them last week, but currently they're tied with Cleveland for the lead in the North Division. Are they actually going to be this good, or is this all a mirage?
I am still definitely on Team Mirage right now. They're currently 3-2, which is great, but they have allowed more goals than they've scored. And when they lose, they're losing by multiple goals. 3-1 to Toronto, 6-2 to Syracuse, and otherwise they're playing a lot of one-goal games. Of their 3 wins, 1 came in overtime, and 1 had a Rochester game-winning goal at 19:57 in the third period. So again, these are games that could have very easily gone the other way had, a coin flipped the other direction. Last week, we talked about how goaltending for Rochester is pretty much in the same place as last year, and that's showing to be true already. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has played all 5 games so far for Rochester. Right now, he's got a 3.0 goals against average, .892 save percentage, which is not too far off of his career average in general, which is 3.27 and .894. He's only had a goals against average under 3 once in his career, and that was 2018-19, and he only played 1 game. So let's talk about small sample sizes. Just scratch that. I don't love his movement in net. He seems really slow getting from post to post. There's a lot of open space for players to shoot into. And I've seen a lot of these goals against are coming when he's gotten pulled out of position and he's not getting back across in time. I think at this point in his career, he's been around long enough that it's probably safe to say that this is who he is as a goalie. Rochester also has Malcolm Subban on their roster. He's injured and he's expected to miss at least a few weeks. And they've also got 30-year-old journeyman Michael Hauser, who has primarily been an ECHL goalie throughout his career, 228 games in the ECHL, 88 in the AHL. Neither of those guys really much better options than what Rochester has. The penalty kill also already looking concerning. Some of that I think we can chalk up to goaltending like we just talked about. The penalty kill, 31 out of 32 in the league, 66.7%. They've allowed 6 goals against. 2 of those 6 came against Syracuse, which is the top power play in the league at the time of recording. So can you really fault that? Kind of. Goaltender has been screened on goals, often by his own teammates. And sometimes it's that same problem as before of slow movement in net, just not getting across quickly enough. But you don't necessarily need all of your special teams to be working. You might just need one. And the power play is doing it for Rochester. They're 4th in the league right now at 30.4%. The power play is showing why they're being successful in these games, and is probably a good sign for Rochester in general if you're looking towards the future. We're seeing a lot of really good puck movement. They're aggressive, and there's really good positioning. They always have a guy in front of the net to pick up those opportunities of rebounds or tucking pucks in that a lot of teams just seem to somehow forget about. The teams above them in terms of power play, Syracuse, Cleveland, and Charlotte. So the top power plays in the league are all in the Eastern Conference, which makes the penalty kill probably more concerning for Rochester, given how often they're going to be seeing those teams this season. So ultimately, they're a team that might be fun to watch, but they're probably only going to go as far as their goaltending takes them. And based on, again, the small sample size of these first few games, that is probably not going to be very far.
Yeah, it's been tough for Rochester because it seems like year after year, it's the goaltending isn't quite there. The defense is not doing that goaltending any favors. Mm-hmm. So it's been gong show adjacent. What's like a smaller version of a gong? I'm not a music
like little tiny cymbals,
like a cymbal show.
Cymbals.
It doesn't have the same that doesn't have the same feel to it though. A cymbal show, that feels weird.
Yeah, no.
All right. Well, regardless, we are going to take a break here. After the break, we will get to Grand Rapids, Chicago, Calgary, and Coachella Valley. the West Coast, the best coast. If you're just here for one of the Eastern Coast teams that we talked about, and this is your jumping off point, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. Links to our social media, our merch store, and more can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/thecalderfarmstead. We're going to pay some bills, run some ads. We'll be right back. Skål.
We are back, and we're going to be taking a look now at the West. We're going to start right now with Grand Rapids. We're going to start in the middle part of the West. Grand Rapids, the Griffins are currently tied for 23rd in the penalty kill and raw percentage at 75%. That is obviously not ideal. So, Sean, what is going on with the Grand Rapids Griffins?
Well, for starters, going into Wednesday's slate of games, the Griffins are tied for the AHL lead in number of times shorthanded. In the opening game of the season, they had a 5-on-3 that lasted a genuinely ridiculous amount of time. I think they had like 4 guys in the box. One more, I think the fire marshal was going to come in there and throw dudes out. But all the penalties that they took that caused that incredibly prolonged 5-on-3 were, the correct call as I saw them. I'm sure fans, don't ever like when penalties are called against them, but like your guy did that thing. They also got caught in the PK with a bad line change that caused one of San Diego's power play goals in those early games. You take that 5-on-3 away, that, line change mishap that they had, and suddenly you're 20-24 on the penalty kill, tied for 8th in the AHL. And yes, I'm aware that's not how math or penalty killing works. You can't just erase goals you don't like, but I think projecting forward, you can look at goals which are more repeatable against your penalty kill and those which aren't. 5-on-3 goals aren't really an accurate way to measure your 5-on-4 abilities, and 5-on-3s don't happen that often, whereas you're going to take, probably 3 penalties a game at minimum. Bad line changes on penalty kills, also not very common. And just because I can rationalize 2 of those power play goals away doesn't mean I don't have some thoughts on the penalty kill, though. I think they haven't been very good forechecking and have given up zone entries rather easily at times, which is obviously bad. The best way to prevent power play goals is, first, don't take penalties. Second, don't let the power play get possession in your defensive zone. And those may seem like, well, duh, kind of statements. And yeah, they are, but discipline and good penalty kill forechecking go a very long way to hiding a bad penalty kill. The other thing that's concerning me is that I don't think guys like Edmondson and Donovan Sabrango have been great at boxing out guys at the net fronts. Edmondson especially should be better at that, given that he is gigantic and very strong. But he lost both Chase DeLeo and Joey Anderson at the net front on the penalty kill. That resulted directly in goals against. Those are both guys that he has size over by a mile. Like, Chase DeLeo and Joey Anderson are about my size, and Edmondson is like 6'6", 215, somewhere in that neighborhood. He's a big dude. Edmondson at least has the excuse that he's played, 4 whole games of North American professional hockey. Donovan Sabrango has 98. He should know a little bit better about how to get body position on the net front on the penalty kill. That's something that he probably should have, a little bit better understanding of at this point in his career. But there are, overall, I think the penalty kill will be okay. This is, again, a team with a lot of Utes on it. These kind of growing pains are going to happen, especially when you put them in big situations where they're going to be basically playing one-on-one at the net front with a much more experienced player on the other side. I'm not totally concerned by the Griffins penalty kill yet, although, as we talked about in our season previews, goaltending in Grand Rapids concerns me. The defense being young concerns me. We're seeing some manifestations of that early, but I don't know how much stock I put in that just yet.
So, speaking of maybe some older players on the Griffins, Matt Luff was not appearing in this film during season previews. He didn't make it into the top 6 or the other notable section of the preview, but right now he has 7 points in 5 games. So, as a certified Matt Luff / Meatball Luff fan, how did you miss the preview, and what have you seen from him now?
So, to be fair, our top 6 in the Grand Rapids preview were L'Esperance, Bergeron, Hirose, Criscuola, Zarnik, and Giovanni Smith. The other notables in general for our previews was typically geared towards younger prospects, of which Matt Luff is not. Second, I actually felt pretty good that he was going to make the Red Wings, even though they sent him down prior to us recording the preview, mostly because the Red Wings did and still do have a ton of cap space. I thought Elmer Soderblom would get like a few NHL games and then get sent to Grand Rapids, or guys would go on season opening IR and he'd be on the Red Wings roster, never having actually left. It was all a paper transaction, blah, blah, blah. Basically, I tried to get cute after Nick Foligno, Mike Riley, and Wayne Simmons burned us. My bad. Luff is a guy who's good enough to play in the NHL, I think. He's not the best skater, but he's a solid forechecker. He has a skill set that makes him an offensive weapon in the AHL. His offensive skills, playmaking vision, puck skill, shooting talent are well above average in the AHL and are NHL caliber by and large. He's also an excellent forechecker, which we said, and we've already seen that forechecking ability pay off as it directly has led to goals for Grand Rapids already this early in the season. You put that with shooting talent, the puck skills, the playmaking vision, plus he seems to have instant chemistry with Tero Hirose and Austin Czarnik, both of whom have a fair number of NHL games under their belts. It's not shocking to see him be a point-per-game player on a line that's loaded with guys who maybe are kind of too good for the AHL, but can't quite crack an NHL lineup like Hirose and Austin Czarnik, and in this case, Matt Luff. So to see him come off to that, super hot start, it's not surprising. And again, I apologize. I tried to get cute, seeing moves ahead and not including him in our preview because I didn't think he would still be here. And one of these days, I will learn to stop trying to guess ahead on roster moves for the NHL and AHL because we're right about a lot of stuff on this podcast, which I take pride in. We do a lot of work to be right as often as possible. But if there is one thing that we are consistently wrong about, it's what NHL teams are going to do when it comes to roster construction and sending guys back and forth between the AHL and the NHL. We're terrible at that. I need to stop trying to play those games because I lose like every time. And then I have to answer, why'd you leave this guy off your preview? He has 7 points in 5. Yeah. So, all right. Let's move on in the Western Conference. In the Central Division, let us talk about the Chicago Wolves, your reigning, defending Calder Cup champions, and the jersey and medallions here that grace my beautiful Viking costume. Winning it all in the AHL 1 year does not mean that you've got the start of a dynasty or that you'll even come close to repeating the next season. After turning in a dominant performance last season, Chicago Wolves are essentially starting from scratches. They got pilfered pretty hard. Sarah, in your viewings of the Wolves this season, what has been the biggest difference between this year's team and last year's team that won it all?
So experience has got to be a huge factor here. They lost, like you said, they've gotten picked over pretty well. They lost guys like Andrew Podorowski, Josh Levo, CJ Smith, Jalen Chatfield, Stefan Nason, both up in the NHL with Carolina, and solid role players like Spencer Smallman, David Gus, David Cotton have all moved on. Of course, also Alex Lyon in net takes away some experience back there as well. It's easy to compare this team to last year's Wolves, but new head coach. It's his first year coaching at the professional level, largely new roster. It's apples and bananas here. Returning players are largely younger guys in their second year as professionals like Jamison Rees, Jack Drury, or guys going into their first full year like Vasily Ponomarev or Noel Gunler. So not a ton of experience again throughout the lineup. And you need to avoid comparing them to last year's team because unlike the team that won the Calder Cup, again, this roster just not nearly as experienced up and down the lineup. They're 2-2 right now. The two losses, they got behind early and just couldn't force a comeback. And one of the biggest problems that I'm seeing with the Wolves right now is chemistry. Players aren't aware of where the others are on the ice. They're making plays that teammates can't keep up with. And that's particularly evident with older guys like Ryan Zingle and Brendan Perlini. These guys have NHL experience, can't quite stick in the NHL, but are like easily some of the best players on the ice right now in the AHL. There's a lot of passes missing the target or players who would have had an opportunity to pick up a rebound, get an easy tap in, but they're just out of position and can't get that opportunity. Coach Brock Sheehan, when I've talked with him, has admitted that this is a work in progress. The team has really had very little time together in the preseason. Most of the biggest players were in Carolina's camp for an extended period of time. The 2 preseason games they got were mostly ECHL players with a few young guys who were early cuts from Carolina. So they're still figuring out who works well together, and it's just going to take some time for things to gel. Looking in net, he got his first win in the season. Kochakov did against Texas, but his first 2 games were rough. There were some repeats of last year's struggle early in games. He was kind of unfortunately known for often letting in the first shot that he faced last season, but it's difficult to completely pin losses on him. The defense has used 6 defensemen so far. They've got a bunch on the roster, but they've stuck with the same 6. And we've got Anthony Honka, Ronan Seeley, 4 games played, career total. Griffin Mendel, 14 games. David Ferentz, 54 games. William Lagesson, 107 games. And Max Lajoie, 198 games. Even if you didn't know who any of these players were, they didn't have their nameplates, whatever, you could watch a game and easily see that Lajoie and Lagesson are the most experienced guys. They're also really missing Kevin Fitzgerald. He is injured right now. He didn't participate in camp. He is out with an undisclosed injury, no timetable that I've heard. He has 220 career games played, regular season games played in the AHL. He's not flashy, but he gets the job done and was an important part of that cup winning team. And I think they're really missing his presence back there on the blue line. Speaking of defense, David Ferentz has been really disappointing to me so far. Somewhat lazy play, not to sound like a cliche, but he's not a guy who goes to the dirty areas. He's not battling hard for the puck. In a game against Manitoba, they were scored against because Ferentz had a pretty half-hearted effort behind the net in a board battle, kind of let the other guy just walk off with it. The moose forward comes out with the puck, basically solo effort to go behind the net all the way up to the circles near the blue line, shoots, unleashes this long shot, goes in. Ferentz follows him, but he doesn't engage, he doesn't challenge, he doesn't get in the way of the shot. Easy goal for Manitoba. So he's been not great in my eyes. But if you're looking for something to get excited about for Wolves fans, Anthony Honka has a ton of potential. He has points in each of the games that he's played, and it's been showing that he's really smart on both sides of the puck. So he's providing the offense, but also is making really smart defensive plays that you don't necessarily see from younger players. So there's a lot to get excited about, but for a while, it's going to be a work in progress in Chicago.
And I think that's okay. A lot of, these teams that are basically, you have to buy a program to figure out who half the guys are, who have, we have 8 new head coaches this season, a lot of turnovers there is every year. And it definitely feels like random draw for who's got it together early and who doesn't. I mean, Chicago seems to be struggling a little bit out of the gates. We're going to talk about Calgary, who's been struggling out of the gates. But yet you look at San Jose, a brand new head coach coaching, and a team that is largely remade from, guys that weren't there before. And they seem to be, on the same page early. That's not something we would have guessed or something that you could have predicted. There are a lot of examples of that around the league where it looks like just by sheer good luck, some teams are off to good starts and, are gelling quickly and others aren't. And I think that's okay. Like I said, let's not draw crazy conclusions from a handful of games. There's a long season ahead of us. Like 96% of the season is yet to be played. I think, and I've already seen fans who are like, 2 games in, this is a rebuilding year where, we don't need to see more. We know they're going to be bad. I'm like, yeah, you should pump the brakes a lot on that. It's a long season. I think Chicago will end up eventually being fine, but let's move on here. Sarah, where are we going?
We're heading further west to Calgary. So going into Wednesday night, the Calgary Wranglers, formerly known as the Stockton, whatever they were, the Stockton Heat, that's what they were. I was like, I just erased them from my mind. The Calgary is currently 20th in shots against per game. They're 29th in even strength goals against per game. Last season, they were 14th in shots against per game and 10th in even strength goals against per game. Talk about not making, crazy statements out of small sample sizes here. What's going on with Calgary and their defense?
As we said before earlier in this episode, as well as we've said many times in previous episodes early in the season, you can rewind all the way back to, what would it be, like the low 50s, I think is about where we started the last episode or last season. Go check out some of those episodes. We're going to be preaching the same thing. Defense is always behind the offense in terms of getting systems and everything down. It seems like defense doesn't really kind of get it together until early November. Some teams, like we just talked about with Chicago and San Jose and all of that, some teams pick it up a little quicker, some a little bit slower. But we see this every season. Defensive miscues through October and into November. I like to call them the October oopsies. Then by American Thanksgiving, everyone's kind of figured it out, and we see them coming into December, fewer sloppy defensive breakdowns or just mental mistakes as guys are starting to understand where they're expected to be, how their teammates are going to react, how everything's going to work. And that's where you start to see the truly good teams separate themselves from the actually bad teams. But a lot of the Wranglers' problems look like that. This is especially true for guys who are new to the team, the staff, the system, their teammates. Guys like Clark Bishop, Brett Sutter, Dennis Gilbert, Nick Milosh, Jeremy Poirier, etc. They've all made some sloppy defensive mistakes because on top of a new season, this is a new team, a new system, a new city. And, all of these guys that they're now playing with are, for the most part, new to them. And that takes some time to get acquainted, to figure out small timings and such. If we're still seeing these sloppy mistakes from them as the calendar gets closer to mid-November, then we can start worrying about what's going on. But for right now, I'm not concerned this is anything more than some growing pains in a new season with new teammates. The only one who I could say I didn't expect to improve defensively is Walker Dewar, and that's because Walker Dewar sucks at defense. He's really bad at it, and I don't think that changes as the mistakes he's already making this year were the same ones he made last season. Walker Dewar plays defense to play offense, and that's it. It's bonkers to me that he gets penalty kill time. I was watching some of their game film from earlier in the season, and I saw him on the penalty kill, and I was just like, why? But why? Is going for power kill shorthanded goals really that important? All right. Also to note here, the Wranglers have had some bad luck on defense too. Jan Kuznetsov hit a weird patch of ice, falls down. That lets Cal Burke skate by, score on a partial breakaway. A rebound off the back wall comes right to the Firebirds' Petman, and he scores. Jesper Frodian tips a deflected pass, out of the air that just happens to squeak by Wolf. I think I've counted at least 3 weird bounces that sprung odd man rushes the other way that ended in goals against the Wranglers. I know it's easy to look at Dustin Teen Wolf's numbers here and think that he's part of the problem, but I would very much disagree with that. The only even strength goal I've seen that he's let up so far this season, and I say even strength goal, power play goals are different, but the only even strength goal that I've seen him let up that I can clearly say Dustin Wolf should have had that one was the Andreas Englund goal on Saturday, shot from distance that he saw the entire way, no traffic, nothing. And it hit a weird part of his pad and just deflected over his blocker, but he needed to come up with that save. The rest of them have been high danger chances, and that's why they're called high danger chances. They typically turn into goals. So I'm not totally concerned yet by what I've seen by Calgary's defense. If we're, but if the next time we come around to talk about Calgary and we're still seeing the same things, cool, smash the panic button. But for right now, I think it's okay. Everyone just take a break, take a deep breath, relax, be cool. It's going to be fine.
So in the same vein of not quite hitting the panic button yet, but maybe thinking about you have your hand over the button. Jacob Pelletier, his longest scoring drought of all last season was 3 games, scored 62 points in 66 games last season. Currently pointless through 4 games. What do you think has been the cause of that so far?
Mostly bad luck. Hockey is something that I feel like people don't want to attribute a bunch of luck to, which is not a good choice. Hockey is a random game full of goofy bounces and good luck and bad luck. It's a game played on the slickest surface we can develop with a little rubber disc that goes at freeway speeds. Goofy things are going to happen. But so far from Jacob Pelletier, he has 11 shots on goal through the first 4 games. And from what I've seen from his tape, he's still doing a lot from what you'd want to see from him. He's still finding soft ice away from the puck and setting himself up in good position. He's still making good plays. He's still driving offense. He's still playing good defense. He's still working hard on shifts. all in all, I'm not worried by what I see from him. Hockey is by nature a game of ups and downs, heaters and cold streaks. Again, not slamming the panic button on him just yet. If we get to game 10 and he only has like a point or less, then we can start to maybe see what's going on there. But like, it's not like they're, not giving him power play time or stuffing him on the third line with, 2 pylons. Like he's going to be okay, I think.
So the opposite side of that coin has been the captain of the team, Brett Sutter, who has 6 points in 4 games. He had 19 points in 65 games last season with the Ontario Reign. So, Sean, what has gotten into Brett Sutter here?
Well, for one, he's getting power play time. He wasn't really on Ontario's power play from what I can tell the last couple years. And that always does wonders for your production. Shockingly, when there is one less guy to defend you on the ice, you typically, you see those offensive numbers start to trend up. That's why we've seen good things early from guys like Brian Pino and Felix Robert, because they're guys that are good 5-on-5 that haven't gotten power play time. And now they are. And oh man, look at that. They're scoring a ton. That's what happens. However, I don't think Brett Sutter continues on this production. The goal he scored against the Firebirds, I'll give him credit for. Found soft ice in the open slot, gave Walker Dewar an easy passing option, fired a good shot from in tight. The 5 assists that make up his 6 points, the one on the power play against the Eagles was nice awareness by him. No look pass to Connor Zary, knowing he would be in that spot for a wide open tap in. Beautiful. So that's 2 of 6 that those were great plays by him. The other 4, he didn't really do something for. The first 3 came in the first game against the Firebirds. They all kind of felt fluky. Both the ones that were assists on Phillips' goals, he didn't really do anything to earn that assist. Yes, he touched the puck, but he very much didn't facilitate the play and facilitate the goal in any way. The 4th assist was on an empty net goal. You cannot convince me that that's something he's going to reliably do. No, it's an empty net goal. And that's not to say that Brent Sutter is a talentless hack on offense. Despite the fact that he's from Viking, Alberta, I don't think he maintains the 108-point scoring pace that he is on right now. I don't think he will come anywhere close to that by the season's end. I think a 45-point pace is probably the best you're going to get from him, and that's giving him a very generous Viking boost here. But Brett Sutter is still a talented player, but scoring at that level is not part of his game anymore. Maybe a couple of years ago, we could be having a bit of a different conversation, but I very much expect to see him, I won't say fade, but like I said, 45-point pace, depending on how many games he plays. That's where I would expect to see Brett Sutter, but more of a 2-way, solid depth score, good great third liner, decent second liner kind of production. I don't think a lot of the points he's put in so far have been something that we can count on him to repeat. All right, let's go. I guess technically this is back east from geography. I don't know. Is it?
I think so.
Maybe. I was never good at geography.
No,
we're going to talk about Coachella Valley. The model loves Coachella Valley, and we liked Coachella Valley a lot in our previews. In fact, we liked them even more than the model did, betting that they do just a tiny pinch better than what was predicted. If you haven't seen that episode, it is the previous one, number 116. It's all the way at the end, but go check that out. But Sarah, how is the AHL's newest team living up to expectations that we put on them so far?
So far they're putting in a really strong performance. They're 3-1 in their record after playing against Abbotsford and Calgary, and they're doing it all with honestly really mediocre special teams. The power play tied for 21st in the league, 17.6%. They've only got 3 power play goals, and with the lineup that they have, that should change eventually. They're getting opportunities, and it doesn't help that they were up against Dustin Wolf for those first 2 games. They went 2 for 9 on their power play against the Wranglers. They did manage to chase Wolf in the season opener. He played about 30 minutes and got pulled after the Firebirds scored 3 straight in about 3 minutes to make the score 5-1. But it happens to the best of us, I guess. Penalty kill, real bad, 29th in the league, 69.6%, worst in the Pacific Division. They allowed 3 power play goals in 1 game to Calgary. So that's bad. They need to fix that. If you're looking to collect information for a future minor league hockey trivia night, which I know we all have somewhere, I know someone out there is going to be organizing it. I probably know personally who it is. The first goal in Firebirds history came at 6:59 in the first period. It was a relentless first period for the Firebirds. They decided to take their very first game and just go, like they're shot out of a cannon, essentially. They outshot Calgary 14-9. They were relentless on getting to pucks. It was just a really strong performance from them. Scores get a little wacky, but, it's early in the season. Defense is still a work in progress for, I think, everybody. But I think one of the most important things that's going to be, something to keep an eye on for Coachella Valley, and something that we talked about last week in that preview, is that their head coach is Dan Bylsma. He is like one of those players who you watch at the AHL. Some of those guys we just talked about, Matt Luff, those guys in Grand Rapids, you think, man, this guy has the potential to go up to the next level. And then he gets there and you're like, oh, I've made a horrible mistake. I was very wrong. I'm sorry.
Dan.
And I feel like that's what I see from him. I'm watching Coachella Valley. It's clear watching them that they're very well coached. We're 4 games into the season. It's a new franchise. They're on the road until like December because their arena's not done. It's a new coaching staff. They're largely players who haven't played together before. They're playing for a new franchise, so it's not even like there's history on anywhere in their organization. This team has every excuse to be bad. The Vegas Golden Knights, and sort of by extension Henderson, because they also did well in their first season, like they are like the outlier that should not be counted, because a brand new expansion team is supposed to be garbage. Like that's just how it is. And Coachella has every reason to just pack it in, be like, we're guys playing a game. But their performance it's tight, it's professional. Players are not out of position. No one is scrambling. You can tell that they have a coach who has been to the top of the mountain, who is leading them. It's just that this is the mountain that he should be at the top of. Like the Calder Cup is where this is his home. Just stay here, Dan. It's fine. So I've been really impressed, and I think that he's a great coach for this organization, and I think he should stay there.
I mean, I feel very confident when I say this. The second head coach of the Seattle Kraken is going to be Dan Bylsma, without question. There is no doubt in my mind when they finally realize that Dave Haxtell is not going to lead them very far, that they're going to promote Dan Bylsma. No question in my mind. And I will say, like, I think of coaches as 3 buckets, more or less. There's the coach that will get more out of your team than somebody else could. There is the coach that if you give him the, guys that fit with his style, his system that he connects with, he can get a little bit more out of. If he doesn't, he gets a little bit less out of, but more or less the team that he has is the team that he has. That's what he's going to get with them. And then there are coaches that are going to take a decent team and they're going to drag it down. I think of Dan Bylsma as being in that middle group. Like, I don't think he's dragging a bad team to success, but I don't think he's, dogging a decent team to failure. He's someone, if you give him guys that for whatever reason just click with him, that he, communicates well with, that he can push them, a little bit further than they would have gotten on their own or with a different coach. But by and large, he's going to kind of do with the team that he has in front of him. At the NHL level, that is. At the AHL level, he's shown, that he can outcoach other guys at this level, depending on who they are. But I like Bylsma a lot as a coach of this team. The other thing, too, I will say about Coachella Valley that they have their advantage of is, like, they don't have a home game until, after Christmas? Mm-hmm. It's a long time, which means the second half of their schedule is basically just going to be nothing but home games. And home games are the ones that your team wins just by virtue of being, in your own bed, in front of your fans, with your, with all of the amenities that you have at the home arena. You're going to win more often at home than you are on the road. So if they can pull out of, this ridiculously long road trip, and we've said that from the beginning, this team has a stupid amount of veteran talent that's known, that should produce well. They have a good coaching staff. And if they can come into, the opening of their arena with even a 500 record, they're going to run this division. And I don't think I've seen anything that's made me change my mind on that. I watched those Calgary Coachella Valley games from the first 2 of the season, and they looked real good. My only real complaint is the numbers are hard to read on AHL TV. That's it. That is my crying complaint.
No, that was painful watching those games. Just the dark on dark.
It's not great. Like, I'm not sure how I would make like a tweak, because I like the way it looks in general. Like, I would buy one of those jerseys and eventually probably will, but I'm not a fan of it from trying to figure out who a player is on AHL TV. That's been challenging so far. But anyway, let's move on to our fun segment at the end. We're going to play Start Bench Ship. We have 3 Start Bench Ships here. If you are unfamiliar with Start Bench Ship, it's the same mode as a game you may have heard. We'll call it Friend, Marry, Kill. It's in that neighborhood. Same concept. Let's go ahead. Sarah, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Let's start with journeyman AHL defenseman. We have Tommy Cross, Trevor Carrick, and Adam Clendenning, guys who have been AHL vets for a long time, traveled the AHL pretty widely. Sarah, who you starting, who you benching, who you shipping to the coast?
I'm going to start Trevor Carrick, largely like 40% because that sweet mustache he has in that picture. I think that's going to help him out a lot. But no, I mean, I've seen a ton of him with the Gulls, and he's still got something in there. Adam Clendenning, bench him. Tommy Cross, sorry, I haven't seen much from you, so we're just sending you to the Netherlands.
That's a rough one for Tommy Cross. All right.
Sorry, man.
I'm going to follow the same order here, but for different reasoning, I think. I think Trevor Carrick across his career has been the most consistent, and I think I like that. I know what I'm going to get out of him every time. He's someone I can play in any situation, penalty kill, power play, up a goal, down a goal. He's someone I can just kind of blindly put on the ice and trust that he will not screw it up, more often than not. Adam Clendenning is someone I'm going to bench Adam Clendenning, mostly because when he is in his own zone or defending the rush, I want to bench Adam Clendenning. In the offensive zone, on the power play, 2 thumbs up. In his own zone, defending the rush, that's a no. That's where I want to bench you. You're getting benched there. Tommy Cross, by default here, ends up as the ship. Like, I like Tommy Cross. I think he brings a good thing to Springfield. But I don't know. I feel like he doesn't give me the offense that Clendenning is. He's not a blindly throw over the boards guy like Carrick is. He's like a poor man's Trevor Carrick. That's how I would describe him. He is an East Coast guy. Wow, Trevor Carrick's now on the East Coast, so he's not an East Coast Trevor Carrick. I don't know, but yeah, that is how I'm going with this second Start Bench Ship of 3. We're going to talk about these third jerseys because the NHL did its reverse retro. We threw some self-made reverse retros out there, which had mostly positive results. The Cleveland Monsters won not so much. But let's talk about these third jerseys. The Tucson Roadrunners and their Kachinas, the Milwaukee Fauxbacks, and the Charlotte Checkers ones that started out as an April Fool's joke, and then enough people were like, but I want it. So they made it happen. Sarah, what say you?
This one's hard because I think they're all kind of rad in their own way, but I'm going to start the Milwaukee Admirals. I just love anything they do with this sort of retro vibe and little Art Deco looking skating pirate there gets the A+ from me. Benching the Kachina hurts because it is one of the coolest jerseys in the world, but it got to go somewhere. And Charlotte, we're going to ship it. Again, also cool, but you can't beat the skating pirate man and cool bird thing.
I'm going to start on the opposite end. I'm going to ship the Charlotte Checkers jersey for one very, very simple reason. Hockey jerseys need the bottom waist stripe. Otherwise, that is pajamas. That has been my take forever. I will continue with that take. I like the concept. I think it's fun that they started out as a joke and then were like, well, people really like this. Screw it. Let's go with it. I respect the hustle there, but waist stripes. That is a non-negotiable part of a hockey jersey for me. You're getting shipped to the coast. I am benching the Milwaukee Admirals jersey only because that is, I don't like the cream color. If you would have gone with like a blue as a base there, we'd probably be starting you. Although over that Tucson Roadrunners jersey, that is one I've had my eye on for a while. I've been trying to find like a good AHL like sale price or on eBay for it. I have not yet found one. But those are probably the best third jersey in the AHL. If they might be top 3. So I got to start that. They are, I think, a better third jersey than any of the other 2 here. We're starting that one. Last but not least, we will do a festive one here, because there's been a big debate about this on the internet about Halloween candy, which has been surprising. I have been surprised by some of the discourse in the internet area. So start, bench, ship, Reese's Pieces, Snickers, or Kit Kat. Sarah, what say you?
As a person who would eat peanut butter for like every meal, if it was possible and it wouldn't kill me, I have to start with Reese's Pieces. A+ right there. Bench the Snickers, because again, it's got to go somewhere. Kit Kat, I'm sorry, Kit Kats, you're great, but we've got to ship you out. You're not nearly as fun as the other ones.
So I am going to ship the Snickers. They have great commercials, but I've always thought they were too thick. Like every time I bite into one, I'm like, geez, I need to sit down now for 5 minutes to digest like the heaviness of that bar. Whereas like the Kit Kat, I'm going to bench the Kit Kat, but they're very light. Like I feel like I could eat a ton of them and still, run a 5K, provided that I could do that before I started eating the Kit Kat. Yeah. Which may or may not be true. Reese's Pieces, obvious starter here. I was amazed at the discontent I saw behind Reese's Pieces. Like Reese's Pieces is A+, top of the food chain Halloween candy. I will hear no other opinions about that.
Yeah, no, sorry to those people, but they're wrong. That's no.
Reese's Pieces,
unless you're allergic to peanut butter.
Oh, okay, that's a different story. If you
you do what I do as a person who loves peanut butter. You find the people in your life who can't eat peanut butter, and then you take it all from them. Yeah. That is the only excuse I'll give you. That's it.
If you're allergic to something, that's a very acceptable reason to not be aboard the Reese's Pieces train. Other than that, it's you are either allergic or you are wrong. That is it. Those are the buckets in which you fit into if you do not like Reese's Pieces. But that is our show. Sarah, start us out.
Well, thank you so much for watching and or listening to the show. I hope you enjoyed our special Halloween accoutrements for all of you. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and several other great hockey, sports, and sports entertainment programs at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Just click the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website and enjoy.
And if you guys are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, please rate and review the podcast. Or if you're watching on YouTube, like the video, comment what you thought of the episode. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. We actually do read our reviews. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at the Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our new theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's AD_DYSFUNCTION. So you can make music for you too. Sarah, where can people find you?
My name is Sarah Avampato. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at Right Said Sarah. It's WRITE Said Sarah with an H. You can check out my writing at Full Press Hockey, where I talk about the Ontario Reign, or go over to Canes Country, part of SB Nation, where I talk about the Chicago Wolves. Sean, where can folks find you?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien_81. My Instagram is a personal account. My Twitter is personal-ish, mostly nonsense about the world around me, as well as some hockey things. You can find all of my stats work, and eventually the stats work for this season, soonish, at my Tableau page. Easiest way to find that is bit.ly/data dump and chase, all lowercase, all one word. Thank you guys for tuning in for the show. For Sarah Avampado, I am Sean O'Brien. Please dump and chase responsibly, and Skull.